What's up, y'all? Welcome to another CoogsTalk. I'll be your moderator today. My name is Adrian Romero. We have Blessing and Mathew up here. We're going to talk the big UH loss, Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud, and how are things looking for the Warriors this season. So we'll get into that right now. Starting off with UH's loss in the Sweet 16 round of the NCAA March Madness tournament, falling short against Miami, seeing the past season, having pep rallies for, being heard about the very top-notch culture we have here, almost kind of giving it up to Miami there at some points. Where did everything collapse for the Cougs, and how do you think next season is going to go entering the Big 12 and losing Sasser, possibly Walker? Blessing, let's hear what you got to say.
You know, I'm a big fan of UH. Obviously, I go to the school, so there's a level of support I have for the team. But that was embarrassing. That was an embarrassing loss. And I'm starting to notice like a pattern with this team when they lose in these games. The lack of adjustments from Coach Sampson, which I'll leave to Matthew to get into of what we saw. But specifically in the games that they lose, they lack the ability to get to the rim. They don't get to the rim a lot. They over-rely on the three-point shot. They're extremely efficient in these games. And the thing about college basketball that's always annoyed me is that they lack fundamentals a lot of times. And when I mean fundamentals, I'm talking about like just little basic things, like they lack the ability to set screens properly or roll to the basket properly. And that stuff is really frustrating, not only as a basketball fan, but as someone that loves the NBA and you see the drop in quality. But aside from that, the thing with UH that really bothers me, if you look at the last 3 times they've lost in the tournament, when they lost in the Final Four to Baylor, when they lost in the Elite Eight to Villanova, and now losing in the Sweet 16 to Miami. Let's go to each and every game, and I'm going to tell you what happened. When they lost to Baylor, guess what their three-point percentage was? They shot 6 of 19 from 3. That's 32%. That's horrendous, horrendously bad. Then you go to their loss against Villanova, right? They shot 1 of 20 from 3.
That's pretty bad.
5%. 5%. They don't get to the rim at all. They over-rely on the three-point shot, and that's very frustrating to watch because you have to make adjustments as a coach. And then last night against Miami, guess what? They shot 9 of 31 from 3. They missed their first 9 attempts from 3 in the second half. Didn't make any type of adjustments, didn't even try to look at the rim. And I understand they're down, but at a certain point, you just have to chip away at the lead with what you got. And it doesn't have to be three-point shot after three-point shot after three-point shot. And if you look at all the other numbers, they had the same amount of assists as Miami. They out-rebounded them on the offensive glass 11-6. They had just as many blocks, just 1 less steal. They had more turnovers, but it was a 2 difference there. They got to the line just as much. They got to the line 20 times. Miami got there 19 times. The problem is they lack the ability to get to the rim. And the defensive issues, I'll let Matthew expound on that a little bit more, but I'm going to say this now. Coach Sampson, with UH now going into the Big 12 next year, I believe his job is potentially on the line. And I'm not going to say they should fire him because he's done a great job overall. They were just in the Final Four 2 years ago. They have Jarris Walker, who looks like he's going to be the best defender.
He's going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, he's going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
He looks like he's the best defender in this draft class. Well, Wembanyama is insane. But outside of Wembanyama, he looks like he could be the best defensive prospect in this draft class. But unfortunately, like when you look at their losses in the last 3 years, considering that they're going to be facing tougher competition, you're not going to be able to beat down on terrible teams throughout the whole season. Look at the competition they faced in the tournament, or not in the tournament, but in the regular season, losing to Alabama, losing to Memphis, losing to Temple. Like those are teams you should be beating. Those are the legitimate teams. So you can't steamroll through trash like they did this past year. So I think if they can't even get to the Sweet 16 again next year, I would consider letting him go. But that's just my personal opinion. Matthew, what do you think about it?
You know, of course, that's an embarrassing loss for all accounts and all of that, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. Even going towards like looking more in depth on defense, even though like Jarris Walker was amazing defensively in that game, you know, but some of the adjustments that like, you know, Kelvin Sampson didn't even make in that game. You know, they keep on trying to trap these players, Nikhil, what's it called? Nikhil, Nigel, Nigel, some dude, and that cornrows dude from Miami. Miami, like they just keep on scorching from three and all that, and so they just keep on, like, the defensive side of the ball, like they just keep on like trapping players and all that, but they're not even trying to go man. I don't understand why you're not trying to go man, even though you're giving up, first of all, giving up lots of open layups, and two, you try to like trap post players, like they're just gonna kick it out to the other guy and they're gonna make a easy three. And so,
and it's insane because I remember there was a stretch in the game. It was like, I don't want to say midway. It was like earlier in the second half where they kept going to the the left baseline, the left corner three, and it was insane. They would trap at half court, they'd swing the ball around, Miami would, and then eventually they would go to the left corner three. It was like, I want to say 3 straight plays. And then they called a timeout, UH did, and it happened again after the timeout.
And that right there, that's just unacceptable. Like 4 straight times, even when you call a timeout, man, like Coach Sampson, like he has to make certain adjustments, especially going to next season. Because if he does the same mistakes over and over again, man, then I think they should let him go like after next season, because like Kansas, Texas, like they're legitimate teams in the Big 12. Like, and I can go as far as to say like the Big 12 for basketball is the best conference in America. And so if you're not going to make these certain adjustments, especially in going against those teams, then yeah, man, like his job is, he's out the door after next season. So he's definitely on the hot seat going to next season.
To wrap everything up, you get 10 seconds with this team, and then you get 10 seconds with Sampson. What do you tell them?
You know, Kelvin Sampson, you're a great coach, but there's certain adjustments, like important adjustments that you need to make, and if you don't, then I need to consider you out of the job.
Think about it. Blessing, what are you telling them, or the team?
Well, Sasser and Walker, they're going to be gone. But the rest of you guys that are still going to be there, y'all have to show a real culture. Y'all have to take accountability for this loss and understand that you cost this team a spot in the Final Four. And hopefully going forward, y'all make the proper adjustments in your game and try to actually get to the rim. Please.
Moving on to Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Pull up the notes or just get those brains flowing. Right now we got 2 very talented QBs up for draft in this next NFL rookie class. Both have been talked about a lot, probably ad nauseum at this point. There's a lot of hype, but the only conclusion is the one that we come to right here today on CoogsTalk. Mathew, who's the better QB overall, and who's going to make the biggest difference to their teams the quickest?
I think that Stroud, to me, is a safer draft pick than Bryce Young, because of course his size, 6'3", and not just that, even though Bryce Young may be more athletic and is better at extending plays in the pocket, out of the pocket, Stroud just has a better throwing ability than Bryce Young. He's more accurate than him. He has a better completion rating and also threw more yards this year than Bryce Young, and also has more touchdowns than Bryce Young this last season. And especially, even though not only he is he's also more durable than Young. He played more games that year. Yeah, for me, CJ Stroud to me is the better prospect, especially that pro day. I think he was more prolific than Bryce Young in every shape and form, even though it's not a big gap, but if you just, especially with the size difference, I just think that Stroud is a more safer pick than Bryce Young, because Bryce Young's weight is definitely a concern, being like 6 foot and 195. You know, the NFL competition is another level in that competition compared to college football. And so I just think that CJ Stroud is better prepared as a quarterback than Bryce Young, you know, especially with that better ability to complete passes and make certain reads and all that. And so, yeah, man, I just think that CJ Stroud is the better overall prospect and the safest pick to be the #1 overall pick in this year's draft.
Well, I appreciate what Matthew was saying, but I think Bryce Young is the clear-cut first overall pick. First of all, Marvin Harrison was amazing for them at Ohio State. Nwakamma was also really good, 2 1,000-yard receivers that C.J. Stroud had. And I'm not trying to take away from C.J. Stroud. You know, they both help each other, the receiver and the quarterback. I'm not going to ever deny that. But Ohio State has a really good offense. They had a great offense. None of the receivers for Alabama had over 1,000 yards. None of those receivers I would consider great receivers. Not saying they're bad, not saying they're trash, but Bryce Young was carrying that Alabama offense. I understand the risk of his size and things of that nature, but we've seen anomalies in history. You know, we've seen Drew Brees, we've seen Russell Wilson, and sure, the ending of their careers, Russell Wilson right now looking like just hot trash, but he still is a Hall of Fame quarterback in my opinion. Drew Brees is definitely without a doubt a Hall of Fame quarterback. So it's not impossible for a smaller quarterback to have a successful career. In the case of Bryce Young in his Heisman season, completing 67% of his passes, he threw for 4,800 yards, 47 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and then he followed that up in his 12 games in his senior year last year with 3,300 yards, 32 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Incredible third season, incredible second season, one of the better Heisman seasons we've seen over the last couple of seasons as well. I have no issue with Bryce Young. He's better against the pressure. He's better, he has more mobility than C.J. Stroud. Not to say C.J. Stroud isn't mobile, but he's not as mobile as Bryce Young. And on top of that, Bryce Young, he just had more of a load at Alabama, you know? So I would have to give the nod to Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud. But, you know, as someone that lives in Houston, I would never be mad if he drops to number 2.
Yeah.
I would love the Texans to get him. They need a quarterback. They desperately need a QB.
Yeah, and I would not be mad if they get C.J. Stroud too, because even though Bryce Young does well in the pressure, does well in the pressure. I mean, but if we're looking at specifically this year alone, like he struggled against like LSU, and against Texas before until that second half, you know. But even though Bryce Young generally does well in the pressure, I mean, he hasn't looked like all the par like every game that year. And so compared to C.J. Stroud, he was more consistent, even though they lost against Michigan and even though they got smacked by Michigan, let's be honest. But even that, bro, like C.J. Stroud was more. He didn't even play bad in that game, to be honest. He didn't even play bad in that game. I think that he had like 71. He completed 80 something completion.
I like how you skipped over that Northwestern game.
Yeah.
Because what happened in that Northwestern game? I understand they won. They put up 21 points against Northwestern.
Yeah, but you lose against, but Bryce Young lose to a top 15 team in LSU, even though they shouldn't even lost that game, to be honest. And C.J. Stroud, even though C.J. Stroud didn't play that well in Northwestern, you know, Bryce Young was absolutely worse. But C.J. Stroud was better in that game in Northwestern than Bryce Young against LSU. You know, in that game, bro, Bryce Young completed over like 45% of his passes. That's bad. All right.
No, it's crazy. I actually don't agree with that. I don't agree with that because I'm looking at it right now, and we watched those games, so I know you watched that game. Against LSU, Bryce Young completed below 50% of his passes, 49% to be exact, but he still threw for 300 yards and had a touchdown. You want to know what C.J. Stroud did against Northwestern? He completed 38% of his passes, threw for 76 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. I'll give him that, but that's still a pathetic game. Now, they won that game, but they won that game in spite of him. They won that game because of their defense against Northwestern.
Yeah.
So I still think that Bryce Young is the better prospect. No disrespect to C.J. Stroud, very good quarterback. Not going to be mad if he goes number 1, but I think it would be a mistake for the Panthers to pick him at the first overall pick.
I mean, I don't think it will be a mistake if both of them, either of them get drafted first overall, because personally, for me, I think that C.J. Stroud is the more consistent passer than Bryce Young.
That's fair.
Can I cut in?
Yeah.
Who makes the biggest impact the quickest?
I think it'll easily be Bryce, easily. And it's not to knock CJ, but I think with the Panthers, like, don't get me wrong, the Panthers, they're making strides to be better, but I think that situation does matter in a lot of these teams. The Panthers don't have the best O-line. C.J. Stroud, it's not like he's immobile, but he's not as mobile as Bryce Young. That's just a fact. He's not. He can do things with his legs, but I think he is better in the pocket than he is on the run. And on top of that, I think in Carolina, they don't have the greatest. They don't have the greatest weapons.
I think C.J. Stroud is a bit better in the pocket, but I will say that Bryce Young is a bit better at extending plays out of the pocket.
Yeah, he can extend plays. I think he's noticeably better at that. And he's better at throwing on the run than C.J. Stroud. And on top of that, don't get me wrong, Stroud is, like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I think Bryce is just a better, more prepared player. If you actually look at the games they faced, in those high-pressure games, I think Bryce Young played better. And C.J. Stroud's not a bad player, like I said, but I just think there's a noticeable gap between the two.
All right, so the final topic, guys, we're going to be going over the Warriors right now. Kind of barely holding their heads above water right now with a less than stellar record as of recording. So why are we talking about them? Well, some people are saying that their dynasty era is over. If that's the case, they had a pretty good run though, huh? With last year's win over the Celtics for the chip, they were in the final 6 times in the last 10 years and snagged 4 rings in the process. Definitely had their drama and costly injuries within those 10 years, but it's safe to say they've come a long way since '97 when their 3-time All-Star point guard, Latrell Sprewell, earned a 1-year suspension after physically choking Warriors coach P.J. Carlesimo. What do y'all think? Warriors dynasty feels like it's crumbling. What's it looking like for the rest of the season at least?
I honestly do think that the Warriors are crumbling. Their dynasty is for sure is crumbling. I wouldn't, say that it's officially over, but it's crumbling. So, especially this year, they have been widely inconsistent. Of course, injuries has played a part in all year. Andrew Wiggins didn't even play like half the season this year due to injuries with his ankle, I believe, something like that. And also Curry also missed time to. Without both of them, they were 7 and 8 through between the months of January and February. This around middle of January to early February. And when Curry came back, they were 7 and 5 during the stretch in March. And so, in the certain players I need to talk about is Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole has been inconsistent. Even though he's averaging 20 points per game, but he's shooting below 45% from the field and 33% from 3. And part of the reason is that he takes the wildest attempts possible. All right, Jordan Poole, sometimes he just needs to have the game come to him. He's trying to force so many shots, And also defensively, he's been the borderline of a defensive liability. And if Steve Kerr might limit minutes come playoff time, because if he does not fix those issues, then it may happen, So
you're ready to say they're not contenders this year?
I don't really think they're at best a playoff contender, because they have, first of all, the bench is not as good as before, because they, first of all, worst play on bench, and plus they have less depth, and 2, defensively they've been mid. They're 15th in defensive rating, and if you don't have that much of a depth, then you're not going to really go anywhere in the playoffs. So right now, man, I don't really see the Warriors as a true contender in the Western Conference, especially now with Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets, and hey, heck, like LeBron could come back and they can be the play-in spot. Maybe if they can like face each other in the play-in, and if LeBron was healthy, yeah, it's not going to be looking too hot for the Warriors like going to the postseason. So, what's your thoughts?
I think they are still contenders. I know they've had a really rough season, but for starters, let's talk about the fact that they have one of the top 5 players in the world. Steph Curry is arguably the best player in the league when fully healthy. I know you have Giannis, you got Jokic, you got Embiid, but in a playoff series, I'm more comfortable with Steph Curry over probably anybody in the league. We just saw him dominate the postseason last year, have one of the greatest series of his career in the finals against the best defense in the league at the time of the Boston Celtics, who are still a great defense to their credit. But here's the thing with the Warriors. I know they've been struggling, but for one, Andrew Wiggins, if he does come back, that will be huge for them. And by the way, Godspeed to Andrew Wiggins. I know he has a lot of personal issues he's dealing with right now. That's why he hasn't been playing. So hopefully he gets that together. I'm wishing the best of luck there. But aside from just Wiggins, you also have Gary Payton that they picked up. He's set to come back soon. One of the issues on their bench is they lack point of attack defenders. They lack defense on the bench. Their starting lineup is still one of the best starting lineups in the league. When you look at their net rating, you look at their offensive rating, defensive rating, all those stats, they still have one of the best starting lineups in the league. The problem is their bench is horrible. James Wiseman, a bust. There's a reason he's gone. Moses Moody is getting DNPs for a reason. Kuminga, he's okay, but he's not really living up to what they thought he was. Let's be real. Looking back at all those picks, they missed out on all of those picks, which is crazy to think about. If they struck gold on just one of them, this dynasty will still be going. LaMelo Ball was there. And I don't know if LaMelo's the perfect fit, but still, he's better than James Wiseman is. And then on top of that, Jordan Poole, I know he has been struggling, but I think come postseason time, when they limit his minutes, he's better in those short surges to give them like a little boost off the bench. That's really Jordan Poole. I look at him similar to how Tyler Hero could be for the Heat, even though I don't think Tyler Hero is as good as Jordan Poole, and I think Hero kind of sucks. But regardless, I think they can be good in those short surges.
They're well around the same same caliber.
And at the end of the day, I know people hate to hear this, but the Warriors have never lost when Draymond, Steph, and Klay start every game of a playoff series. No one has proven they can beat Steph, Klay, and Dre when they play every game of a series. And we know that when it comes to these championship teams, you can sometimes get a little bit too relaxed towards the stretch of the season. Michael Jordan said multiple times, I had to find ways to motivate myself because I was winning too much. And with this Warriors team, they've won 4 championships in 8 years. So sometimes you just relax. And I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but they deserve that kind of leeway when you're that successful, So I'm going to give the Warriors some, a little bit of leeway there. But still, I know they've struggled. Hopefully they get those things together. But another thing you have to consider, the West has issues all over the place. The Nuggets, I'm sorry, I do not believe in Jokic's defense. He's going to have to show me come playoff time. He is barbecue chicken.
Have defenders. They still have defenders that can. Jokic, all right, but he's a.
Who's the center?
Jokic.
Okay, and he can't guard a pick and roll to save his life. Let's keep going. The Grizzlies, their half-court offense is smelly, and they've lost Steven Adams. That's going to be a big loss for them. The Kings can't play defense to save their lives. I do not believe in them. The Clippers, don't even get me started on the Clippers. Paul George is out right now, so I think they're just removed from this convo for the moment. The Suns, Kevin Durant barely has played with them. I think they're probably the best team when fully healthy, or at least they're the most dangerous team fully healthy, but he isn't there right now. Then on top of that, and Chris Paul sucks. The Timberwolves, come on now.
Oh, come on.
I don't believe in them. The Lakers are dangerous, don't get me wrong, but LeBron has not played yet. He's not back yet. And who knows how that team is going to look when he comes back. I think they will be better, don't get me wrong. But the Warriors are not going to have to face them in the first round or second round. If they face them, it's probably going to be in a conference finals matchup. They got to get there healthy first. AD, his health is a problem. The Pelicans are not a threat. The Thunder and the Mavs, don't even get me started. They're out the play-in right now for a reason. So the West got issues all over the place, and the Warriors at least have championship pedigree that I can rely on. I've seen them in a playoff setting. I've seen them turn it up. Last year, they were below 500 after the All-Star break. What did they do come playoff time? They cooked Jokic, they beat the Grizzlies, they destroyed the Mavs, and they burnt the Celtics. So, of course, I'm going to look at them as contenders still in the West.
No, you definitely have some good points there, man. But I do definitely agree that the West definitely have issues all across the paper. Especially from like the 13th seed to not the 13th, but the 11th seed to the 5th seed. They're 3 games apart, and so yeah, like the Western Conference is definitely wide open. And I'm just addressing the issues that the Warriors could have come playoff time, because like you said, the championship fatigue is a real thing. Michael Jordan, like you said, Michael Jordan had to motivate himself multiple times in order to win more championships, and so but it's literally the same thing with the Warriors, and that's also one of the reasons why I think that the Warriors, are middle playoff to championship, well around the middle in that spectrum, because they, first of all, they have fatigue, and so also add in the issues with their bench too, and so even though Jordan Poole may go off in the playoffs, maybe he will not, especially if he does not. Especially if he does not improve on the issues that he needs to fix, because, like I said, he needs to stop jacking so many threes. He needs.
I think the biggest issue though is the defense.
Yeah, the defense, the defense, man. He needs to, I think it's just effort, bro. He needs to put in more effort on the defensive side of the ball, man.
It's definitely an effort thing. I think it's an IQ thing. With Jordan Poole, it's crazy that they gave him all this money. And I think it's safe to say if he's not the most disappointing, he's one of the most disappointing players in the league right now, because they put so much stock into him. They didn't pay Draymond. You got to remember, they did not pay Draymond. They paid him and Andrew Wiggins. Now with Wiggins, that's a different thing. But Poole, you see dips in his efficiency. This is the least efficient he's been since his rookie year, and he was the worst player in the league in his rookie year for a reason. So I definitely think Poole has to step it up. He allows backdoor cuts frequently. He's not good on the ball. Off the ball, he lacks awareness at any type of high or respectable, or even average level. So he has to put more effort.
I think that definitely has to do with Steve Kerr, trying to have so much leeway for Jordan Poole, or not just leeway, just let him freelance across on both sides of the ball.
You say it's Steve Kerr. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
I think one thing that hurt the Warriors that nobody's even talking about is the loss of Mike Brown. Mike Brown was one of the best defensive coaches in the league when he was in Cleveland. And on top of that, Mike Brown is still a great defensive coach. I know the Kings are not good, but his loss, you see how it's affected Klay. Draymond is not up to his usual standards defensively, and Poole just sucks. So there you go.
Oh yeah,
right there.
yeah. I even go as far as to say even though the Kings are
30 seconds left. Closing points.
I think that the Warriors are, to me, they're at best a playoff contender. Their bench is definitely, they have one of the worst benches in the league, especially with Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole has been inconsistent, and if he does not fix that, especially on the defensive side of the ball, then I definitely see the Warriors losing in the second round, or even the first round of the playoffs. I would not be surprised, even if Steph Curry or Draymond Green and Klay Thompson go crazy. All right, if you don't have a bench, you're not gonna go anywhere in the playoffs. So.
Yeah, I feel that, but I still think they're contenders. At the end of the day, I'm going to respect their history. I'm going to respect their championship pedigree. They've had some inconsistencies this year, but guys are set to be coming back soon. And on top of that, they have arguably the best player in the world. You can't say that for everybody in the NBA.
But Giannis
Is Giannis in the West?
Okay,
Okay,
bro.
so
Okay,
that's
bro.
fine.
Right.
And
Nikola
you can still-
Jokic and Steph Curry, they're in the same.
Can Jokic guard a pick and roll? Yeah, so until that happens, I have no faith in the Nuggets.
Answer that one for yourselves at home, everyone. Thanks for watching another segment of our CoogsTalk show here at Coog TV. I'm Adrian.
Mathew.
Blessing.
We'll catch y'all next time.